editor-in-chief of Blogging the Boys, who joins us right now. RJ Ochoa, how are you?
Doing well, Kate. Thanks for having me. Nice to be on with some supreme fellow athletes in Darius and Shane.
Yeah, Super Bowl champion. Shane Vereen will be on the show. We love that. We've got so much to talk about with Darius as well. Let's talk about the Cowboys. Let's just get right into it. Mike McCarthy, what do I need to know about this appendicitis? Is it going to get in the way? Sounds like everything's fine. Will he be there Sunday? What do we know?
Yeah, it certainly seems like it. I'm not a doctor. I had my appendix removed when I was a teenager, although mine was a little bit more serious than Mike's. But I turned out all right. I think that Mike will be all right. It's a fairly simple procedure from a general standpoint. Obviously, one of those things that just kind of pops up. But thankfully, it happened on Wednesday and not on Friday.
Yeah, apparently, I heard that Dan Quinn said, you think that tough Irishman's going to miss this game? This is the game of the year for both squads, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big game. Obviously, there's a lot to go. And even, if the Cowboys win, they will hold first place in the NFC East right when the game is over, but they still won't control their own destiny. The Eagles can lose this game and win out and still win the NFC East. So it does kind of, diminish some of the big game feel. But it's a big game because these are, two of the three best teams in the NFC. Two teams who are probably going to face each other at some point in the playoffs. Two teams who really hate each other, at least the fan bases do. And the game at AT&T Stadium between the two of them last year on Christmas Eve went down to the wire. And so it's Dak, it's Jalen, it's kind of everything you want it to be, which is what makes it so fun and so terrifying.
I think it is the biggest game of the year, and you're saying it's one of them, and I appreciate that. I do think that. And when, McCarthy, I know he's going to be fine. He was there on Sunday. How does this change their approach to the game? It can't be the same as always. They're men of routine. He's a big part of that. Like, how does it affect it, and how concerned should I be?
I mean, I do think it is significant that it happened on Wednesday, which is, earlier in the week. There's, been a lot of talk this year about how Mike's schedule has been different. Obviously now as the play caller, there's a lot, different responsibilities and things he has to delegate that, weren't necessarily the case a year, 2 years ago. But this is maybe the second best team in the NFL right now, the third best team, again, depending on kind of how, far you're willing to drop the Eagles after last week. And so, I mean, you can't attack them the same way. And I think that that's what Dallas learned in the first matchup. And they had some things break against them, all the fumbles that Philly was able to recover, the Luke Schoonmaker play at the goal line, Dak stepping out of bounds and the 2-point conversion. And so I think you have to be relentless. I think that that's kind of the big takeaway from the first matchup is if you give this team an inch in Philly, that is, they'll get a mile out of it, and they'll get that mile. And that's how they pile up all these wins. People say that they're frauds or whatever. They're an incredible team that know how to take the exact moment of opportune time and capitalize on it.
What sort of defines this team? If you're looking at just the body of work, what you've seen now, Dak's stringing together great games. Like, you've covered this team, different levels of it, same quarterback, different quarterback. What's the theme of this Cowboy squad?
I think this is who they've always been. In some senses, last year, the interceptions just were this massive story. And that just kind of, was what all anybody wanted to talk about. And Mike McCarthy is somebody who doesn't get a lot of love, obviously, in the national media. But this is who he's always been. He has a 14-game winning streak going on at home. He had, a 13-game winning streak at one point at Lambeau Field. He takes care of division rivals for the most part. That was a hallmark quality of his with Green Bay. He responds well after losses. That is what the Cowboys do. And he has turned this Cowboys team in this little run, I would argue, since 2021 because of the Dak injury in 2020. They are a blue blood of the NFL. They're in the playoffs year in and year out. I mean, they're on the verge of establishing a third consecutive playoff berth. They haven't been to the playoffs 3 years in a row since the mid-90s. They haven't won double-digit games 3 years in a row since the mid-90s. They have become a team that is to be taken seriously. And I think that they always had those qualities, but they just needed somebody in Mike McCarthy that could be the right leader, be the right manager. He gets grief because of, game management mistakes or things like that, but they needed somebody who understood the football operation because as a brand, this team doesn't need any help, obviously.
No, that's definitely true. It's funny because Mike McCarthy, if they win the Super Bowl, I don't know if he'll get credit. So it's interesting that you are giving him credit for what he's been able to do effectively. What has unlocked this next, in your opinion, what has unlocked this next level in Dak?
I think that Dak is is a different person. You know, there are people in life who are just really good at things, right? Like the Cowboys play this little kind of basketball game with their hampers in the locker room, and like Dak's like the dude who shows up and is like immediately good at that, right? Like he's just the guy who touches everything and it turns to gold. I mean, you know him well, obviously. And we've seen this from him before, but I think that he finally has a head coach who's willing to lean into his aggression. And he finally has a wide receiver, a star wide receiver, obviously, in CeeDee Lamb, who is willing to or able to capitalize on the risks that Dak is willing to take. And Jake Ferguson has emerged, and Brandon Cooks is finally a proper running mate. Like everything has happened around Dak. He's had these things at different points in his career, but they haven't all necessarily lined up, particularly with the head coach and play caller. And now, to boot, he has an all-world defense on the other side to protect him whenever he does make a mistake or things break against him. And I think he's just an incredibly resilient person. I say all the time, he is if you're a football fan, if you're a sports fan, he is a dream to be the quarterback of your favorite team. I mean, he's just perfect in every sense. And I think he really took, I don't want to say personally, all of the interception talk, but I do think that hardened and calloused the nucleus of this team. And not that they're in like FU mode to anybody else, but they really kind of are themselves against everybody. They understand the stage and the platform that they have, and they roll with it. And that breaks a lot of people. Not everybody's cut out, obviously, to be the Cowboys quarterback.
What's it been like? You know, Dak handles himself in front of a camera, in front of an audience very well. It's very hard to let, you know, he's unflappable in that way. And he really is a great leader for that team. And you're saying all these things. Is Micah Parsons like the mirror of that on defense? What has it been like to, you know, see his evolution even this year? Somebody there's a lot of radical candor out of that one.
That's a great way to put it. Dak is Mr. Cookie Cutter, you know, right 101 answer, whereas Micah has his own podcast, and Micah will rank MVP candidates and tell you what he thinks about losses or wins. And I think that adds, you know, a fun energy. And there was a similar energy when Dak and Zeke entered, you know, the league, and obviously were rookies and had that incredible run with the Cowboys. And I think that helps kind of keep everybody young. This kind of passion. I know that, you know, Micah had talked about wanting to kind of go hard in practice, and Dak had a comment a few weeks back and was like, he'll learn. You know, Micah still kind of got that, you know, puppy dog energy, and Dak's a little bit more of an older dog in that sense. But it adds to the overall vibe, and I think it adds to the kind of persona that ripples into each side of the ball. Micah with this just incredible exuberance that everybody feeds off of, and Dak with this incredible poise that is necessary when the ball is in your hands and you have to be careful, but with a particular level of aggression that he's willing to dial up at certain moments.
What does it do to a guy like Micah Parsons watching what the Niners were able to do to the Eagles and now they have to face them? Like, what do you think that does to a guy like him, knowing him so well?
I mean, I think it's exciting. Now, it's not easy to do what the Niners, you know, did to the Eagles or did to the Cowboys for that matter. And I think, you know, the Cowboys have wanted to be the Niners in some senses. The first playoff loss they had, the one at AT&T Stadium in the wild card round, they talked the entire offseason after that about wanting to get tougher and wanting to be more physical and wanting to get glass eaters and things like that. Yeah. And so they've kind of been born in the darkness that San Francisco casted them into. And I think that they're really inspired by that. And I think that it's inspiring, you know, that's kind of a weird word to use, but to see San Francisco capitalize on things that Philadelphia might be vulnerable with, that Dallas wasn't able to kind of, I think it justifies, you know, what you see on tape and what you know to be true. And you know, it's possible. And so I think seeing that happen the week before you play them while you're coming off of a mini bye, I mean, the Cowboys are in as advantageous of a position as they can be coming into this game, which is why a lot of people are so stressed about it.
I was about to ask you, like, it sounds like they're going to the Super Bowl, RJ.
I mean, look, I'm a firm believer in vibes and things like that, but this is a team that has broken a lot of hearts for almost 30 years, and they are doing a lot of things that feel very different, and they have arguably the MVP of the NFL playing quarterback for them, and arguably the defensive player of the year rushing the passer for them. And if it's not him, maybe it's the dude, you know, 25 feet back playing cornerback for them. They have a head coach who's lived in the eye of the storm before, and who obviously had to kind of battle back to get back to the top of the NFL mountain, a process that he's still in the middle of. And so I think they all have scars that they've earned separately and together that, you know, they are more powerful as a result of. But it's difficult, right? You can be the best team in the NFL and still not win the Super Bowl. I think the Eagles would maybe offer a claim for that particular thing a year ago. You have to get lucky. You have to be good. You have to be aggressive. You have to be conservative. It's a dance.
everything you said is so true. You got to solve the Niners.
And, you know, last time we spoke, I told you that the Cowboys weren't afraid of the Eagles. I mean, obviously they respect the Eagles, but that's a team that they've had success against, right? Like there's no doubt in anyone's mind that they can hang with Philadelphia. There is no evidence that they can hang with San Francisco, and even that Philly can hang with San Francisco based off of last week. And it feels like destiny. I mean, it feels like that's a graduation moment that this team has to have, kind of like the 90s Cowboys, you know, that had to go to San Francisco in the title game. But I would be lying to you if I said that every Cowboys fan weren't rooting for somebody else to do their dirty work for them and take San Francisco out at some point along the way.
I'm so curious on the Eagles side. You're saying things have changed. We're talking a lot about destiny. We're talking a lot about how this Cowboys team can hang with the Eagles. They lost to them already. What's different about the Eagles side of things as you're scoping out this matchup? And you pay really close attention to the whole NFC East. I think East different that you're seeing from a few weeks ago.
I think that defensively, they're obviously, you know, hanging on by a thread, depending on what normal statistic or advanced metric you look at. Obviously, it's not great for Philly, particularly if you isolate, you know, the last few weeks, maybe right before the bye, maybe the Cowboys game, if you want to kind of start right there. Dak obviously had a pretty, you know, solid outing against them. And I think beyond that, you know, the Eagles offense it hasn't regressed, but, you know, obviously a lot of people think that Jalen Hurts is dealing with an injury, and he's obviously an incredibly talented quarterback. And all it takes is one moment, whether that's a huge Devontae Smith, you know, reception, or an A.J. Brown touchdown or physical play. And it seems like they put themselves on offensive positions to benefit from luck, if you want to call it luck. But it does seem like some of those things are drying up just a bit. They've really struggled to score points. And so if the Cowboys are able to kind of, you know, not punt the ball like they were last week and pile on some points, I mean, I think that they might be in a position to be able to put them in a bit of a deep hole and unleash their pass rushers to hopefully have success against Jalen Hurts and company.
Dak Prescott is building his MVP case. Last one for you quickly. Could happen. Would be cool if it happened. Do Cowboys fans care if Dak Prescott gets the MVP?
There are a lot of Cowboys fans who hate Dak. I don't know how well you know that. He's a polarizing player, and he lives in a heavy shadow. But I do think people care. I think that Dak has been incredible for most of his career, and while being the quarterback of this team comes with a lot of benefits, I do think it comes with some handicaps, particularly in things like this. I think people hold that against him because of this, that, or the other. But I do think it would be justifying in a lot of people's belief. I mean, dating back to him, you know, keeping the job when Tony Romo was healthy to return 7 years ago. And so I think people really want it for him, obviously secondary to the ultimate prize, but Dak is such a great human being and person and leader and has been the star of this team forever. So I do think that everybody wants to see that happen.
RJ, I wasn't saying like, do they think they care because they don't? I thought just because they only care about the Super Bowl and they don't really care about anything else. And they don't want, I didn't realize you were going to hit me with the nobody likes Dak. Dak's the most hated guy in the world thing. Jeez.
He's again, when you play quarterback for the Cowboys, you know, that's where a lot of Cowboys fans, I think, are jealous of how much Eagles fans go to bat for Jalen Hurts, because Dak doesn't even have his entire. I mean, there's so many Cowboys fans that you know how it can be. People just have opinions that can be a little unique.
Always, I always go over with you. They're like, go to commercial. I just love talking to you. I appreciate it so much, guys. Everybody check out all of the incredible work that RJ does over as the editor-in-chief, content creator, disseminator of Cowboys information over on Blogging the Boys. We appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Kay. Have a great weekend.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe right here. Do it now for the latest from Up and Adams.